but passion gets burnt after a while. To help them overcome the story, we need to understand their language.
But our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is we're powerful above measure.
We're perfectly imperfect. The simplicity of the simple things that we replicate and reproduce daily is what really gets us traction over time.
What's up, guys? Thanks for joining me and welcome to the show. So today I sit down with my special guest, Chris Mattice from Virginia, who was in the high-end personal training business for so long till eventually getting out of it and being one of the creators of the EYL Partners Program, a program that's revolutionizing business coaching in this world. So I got a chance to sit down with Chris and chat about his origins of creating a high-end personal training program that was so successful till eventually getting into that rut that so many people get into of depression and of just overload, till really getting into the program working with Grasso and Carrie, Campbell on the mindset side of it. So the work that he is doing with neuroscience on the biomechanical side, as well as in the mental health side, is just absolutely incredible. This conversation went in so many different directions, but if you're in any type of personal development or want growth in your life, then this is a conversation worth listening to. Thanks so much for guys for listening, and I'll catch you on the inside.
All right, Chris, let's solve some problems of the world here.
Please. Yeah.
High expectations for us today. We were just talking for like 20 minutes. We just had a whole podcast in before this. So I was like, if we don't start recording on this, we're going to go for hours. So, Chris, thanks so much for taking the time. This is going to be great. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Oh, this is going to be, So like I said before, the work that you and BG and Carrie have done through EYL and partners, just what I've seen from the beginnings of it is just something that everybody needs to understand, regardless of where you're at in coaching or what, just the connection and the communication of what you guys are doing in there is just so phenomenal. So excited to have you on just to,
thank you.
Get a little bit of the knowledge of it and also just learn a little bit more, about you in general.
Yeah, ask away. Where would you like me to start? And if I talk too much, you please feel free to stop me.
Oh, never have a problem with that. Well, Chris, I mean, I know you had an origin story of really being in the personal training world for a bit and then moved into more of the business coaching world, really helping more entrepreneurs and solopreneurs really, kind of work on themselves as well as the business in both. And I think in that world of business coaching now, it's such a confusing world of like what to do. Do I work on the tactics? Do I work on myself? And it's like that combination of both. And, from what we were talking about before, you guys have been working so hard on shedding some light and really getting some clarity on this. But I know for you, it really started of being in this world of personal training and fitness. So if you can tell a little bit about that journey to kick us off, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think if we could go to the end first and I'll go to the beginning,
Sure.
I don't want anyone to have to go through what I went through, more importantly. And, if I'll go back years, I started as a personal trainer in Washington, D.C. I became a partner in that business early and I started building gyms for them all over Northern Virginia before personal training really even became online, right? PT on the net was like the thing when it came out for education, right? That was the big educational piece online at the time. And then after being in there for years and building personal training processes and training personal trainers and building businesses and running them and franchising boot camps and that sort of thing. I really decided to go on my own, and I had built through some of my consulting gigs a very high-end personal training studio with a cash-based physical therapy clinic, and I had recruited the top doctor in Northern Virginia to come work for me. So he was in the process of leaving his practice, and thinking that business was built on the hustle and grind of 80-hour weeks and not seeing your family, because I was in this venture world with people who had, given me lots of money and I broke, right? I mean, basically that's what it comes down to. I broke in family, I broke in spirit, I broke physically, mentally. And during that process of going through that, I had met Brian. And when I had to exit that for a myriad of reasons between the partnership and me and my health and my life and my family, they were there when they started their mindset system, which is based on science, it's based on application, etc. And then shortly after that, my marriage fell apart, and they were the stable people, not just colleagues, but they were friends. I had started doing work for them. early on in their mindset certification system. And then we just kind of just stayed with each other, and I did a lot of different things for them within the corporation. And then at the time, Brian had launched the first version of what we call partners, and which is taking coaches who want an online business and teaching them the simple practicality of how simple business can be, which was a big thing for me at the time because I had learned it was supposed to be so complicated and hard, etc.
Right.
And started building my own business online because I started and failed so many freaking times. I didn't know what to say about it, which, like every online coach, because you feel dejected, you feel guilty, ashamed that you're not good enough, but you have this voice you want to get out there. And Brian's really the first one that looked me in the face and told me it has nothing to do about the tactics or strategies, Chris. It's I got to eliminate the reasons why you keep self-sabotaging yourself and you're saying you're not good enough. And that was a big moment for me. As a person, as a business person who was the kitschy self-help, I'm very self-aware, I'm always happy type of guy, right?
Love and light, yeah.
Yeah, and being the male, alpha male society where you got to stuff everything down, and learning that that's just all crap. You know, it's completely backwards, right? It's to build what, and Brian teaches us so well, and Carrie, to build the business you want, you have to become the person you are to have the business you deserve. Like it's so true. Like our practice is it is business. Don't get me wrong. We teach it,
right?
But you could Google it. Like it's all out there for free, which people, they're sold a bill of goods on like the top 0.001% who kill it because they have something unique or they have a distinguishing factor of the one funnel away, or they have something that they sell really well and do well, and they just sell that to death. And everyone picks it up because they want to be successful. Because let's be honest, Mike, the personal training industry is burnt out. Like people, at one point it was the number one job to retire and go into. But as all personal trainers know, you're a chef. You make your money early in the morning and later at night.
Yes.
Right? It's a hard life. And you're as a personal trainer in a big box gym, you don't make a lot of money as a trainer because so you leave, think opening your own business is the dream, and then you find out how hard it can actually be.
Yes.
Right? Because you don't have any business experience. You're doing it on passion, which is awesome, but passion gets burnt after a while.
Right. It is interesting because I think the shelf life now from a personal trainer is 2 or 3 years, where it's you can put that willpower and that motivation together to get up at 5 a.m. and then go till 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. And it's that badge of pride that is in our culture about that of I'm working all day. It's and people are good for you. You're so disciplined. You're so dedicated. I felt that too. It's and you can ride on that for a couple weeks when you feel burnt out, I am working really hard, but eventually you realize that the money's not changing, and the more tactics or certifications or strategies that you find is not fulfilling that because you're just freaking exhausted.
Absolutely. Not only exhausted, you got in the industry because you thought you could work out a lot, and then you find you're so tired you can't work out. Yeah. Right. And then you spend all weekend on the couch because you're so exhausted from the week.
Yeah. You want to help you. It seems too, coaches, really do have this innate feeling that they want to help people.
There's no question.
Yeah.
Right. It's deeply seated. And when you look at the mindset aspect of a coach, you really start to unpeel some parts of them that of why they need to help, why they self-sabotage, even in their aspects of helping someone, just like their client does. Right. So when I teach coaches business and we get into unlayering them, one of the things I ask them, I'm okay, so your client, you're a weight loss coach or a personal trainer, because that's where most people get their weight loss help from now. Your client comes to you and they're not eating your approved menu. They're not making it to the gym, and they keep self-sabotaging yourself, and you come in there and you're frustrated because they're not doing what you do. Then you come to me for business, and you haven't done the work I've asked you to do. You are overthinking your social media, what to post. how much you should do. And I look at them and I say, listen, the things that frustrate you about your client that we teach you is just a story. And to help them overcome the story, we need to understand their language. We need to teach them or wins to repurpose their neural tags in their brain. We need to show their brain direction and close the loop in their brain. And we need to have some inspiration every day that helps them get to X, right? We need to reminder. I said, the same way that you are supposed to help them mindset wise and the things that are holding them back in the stories, you have your own. They're just different. The solution is the same. So what's holding you back, Mike? Like, you tell me, like, where are you self-sabotaging yourself? And here's the thing, when this was really big for me as a person, like in a personality, when you can stop and say, wow, I really do self-sabotage my relationships every single time. Why? What do you do? Like, I self-sabotage my weight loss every single time. Why? What happens? Like, what do you do? Is it because you're being successful and you can't handle it? Because that's a problem for a lot of people, right? They can't handle success. How many people who win the lottery are broke within 5 years?
Yes.
You don't have the software in your brain, the experiences, you don't have the successes, you don't have the failures to grow and become successul. So that's as much as mindset as someone who's never been successful because they keep sabotaging themselves, than it is someone who becomes successful but was never successful, and then they go back to being unsuccessful because they're uncomfortable in the journey. Right? There's no difference. It's just, but the solution is the same thing.
Right.
Us.
So would you say then really like self-sabotaging is really synonymous with the fear of success? Because like so many times we hear so much about the fear of failure, like you can't be afraid of failure. There's a million different motivational quotes, but the fear of like overwhelming success is something that we don't talk about a lot, where it's like, and it seems like that is a topic of, I think it's the Marianne Williamson quote about our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is we're powerful above measure.
Yeah.
And that always resonated with me so much more. And it's like in the world of working with clients, as you said, it's like, it's more comfortable to stay in the failure zone or to go backwards than it is to massively succeed, because you don't know that world. And what we don't know, those are the things that we're nervous about or we're scared about, right?
Yeah. Carrie Campbell tells a story of, and I'm going to kill the story because she tells it so well, but we all travel this path, right? So we're built of experiences, influences from society, marketing, all the world things, our family. So we learn to deal with our stories, our non-serving stories, or the stories we grow up with. Our brain knows how to manage pain, right? It knows how to manage the hardships we've gone through. So we travel that path, and the path is dirty, right? It's all dirt because we've walked it a million times. So we don't even realize the things we say, we do, our actions, behaviors. It's just so ingrained into our life that we go that way. But then we are at the split in the road, the fork in the road. And I'm going to go on the path on the right today because I'm starting to be successful. I want to change. Well, that path is full of weeds and trees. You don't know when it turns right, it turns left. You don't know when it's going to end. It's scary for your brain because it's fear, right? Because your brain doesn't understand change. Change is bad, no matter if it's a good change or a bad change. It's bad. So what does it do? It becomes uncomfortable. So it stresses us out, right? We get anxious because we don't know. It's a path that we haven't traveled. So what happens for a lot of people, they go on that path less traveled, and they go across and they go back to the dirt again because it's comfortable, right?
Yeah, that dirt, you feel that in your feet. Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't matter if it's your health, if it's your relationships, it's your finances. If you're going a different way, that's why so many people go back to that path, because you and I chatted about the 4 stages of learning. It's that second stage where they want to make a change, but they don't have the unconscious mindset or the perception of themselves of a new story to be able to continue through the fog of that second stage of learning. And they end up going back to the place where they just don't know what they don't know, right? Until someone steps up or they feel They have motivation, right? At like a New Year's motivation, like they feel refreshed. Okay, now I have the mindset to go. Well, I could tell you neurally in the neuroscience of the world that your brain is just decreased threat, right? Your brain's it's taught to survive, right?
Right.
So what happens at the end of the year? Everyone's on vacation, everyone's eating, everyone's resting. So the threat in your brain has gone way down.
Yes.
So that's why everyone gets so motivated at the beginning of the year, because they have the capacity to travel that path, but less traveled.
Yeah.
And then they get back into life after the new year. And then they've tried to change their nutrition. They've tried to change their fitness. They've tried to launch a business, and then life, and then the kids, and then sleep. And then all the threat goes up in their brain again. Then boom, self-sabotage, because your brain says, oh, I'm dying. Like I can't handle this anymore. So it has like this overflow spout, and that's self-sabotage.
That's so interesting. You said that it's that decreased threat that you're at, because I've seen that like with, when we say, oh, in the morning time, like, oh, I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning. I'm going to set the alarm early and I'm going to get up and I'm going to work out. And in our heads, we're envisioning we're going to wake up with all this energy in the morning. Like everything's going to be great at that point. But then all of a sudden we wake up and we're tired. We're not used to that. And then sure enough, what do? We hit the snooze and we move on from there. Yeah. So it's like, so how do you really change that story then? Is it setting up just ideas in your head of like, okay, like in that example, like I know I'm going to be tired in the morning. This is what I'm going to say to myself at this time. It's a great
question. It's a really good question. Okay. So the way we look at it, okay, is we all have a language we have in our head that we don't know we say to ourselves every day. Okay. Let me give you an example. Okay. Personally, I never turned the lights on in the bathroom in the morning because I couldn't take my shirt off because I had a poor story about how I looked. Okay. I never turned that light on, but I sure knew that I wasn't going to turn it on, and why. My subconscious was telling me, you're fat, you're out of shape, you're not ripped, etc. Right? Let's use a female example. How many women go to put their clothes on? They don't say, I look fat in that dress. They're like, nuh-uh, and they go. They don't say the words out loud, but their brain's saying them. Right. But it gets to that point where we've walked miles with that language, right? So it's something like we have like 85,000 thoughts in our head a day. It's like most of them are negative because we're conditioned as society to have negative. So we have to understand our language first. Okay. So we don't do that at night. Okay. We teach it to try to do it in the morning so we can hear our thoughts. So this is the path to become more self-aware, right? Self-awareness is not saying I'm self-aware or I know I came from a hard family. It's okay. It's when you're in the dark place, can you do the work to get yourself out of it? Because if you know what that dark place is, like the man in the hole story you and I chatted about, right? I know the steps that I need to get out of it, right? Sometimes it takes a little longer. Sometimes I can do it faster. But when I can know my language and I know the words that I'm saying to myself and I start becoming more self-aware, I'm more self-aware of the things that we talk about. We call it bound nature in our lingo, right? They're non-serving thought and emotions. They're your ego, right? So we learn to name our egos. And then what happens is we learn to change that story. So if I wake up and say, oh, I got so much to do this week, I'm never going to get it done. I wake up and say, okay, what am I going to get done today? Okay. Right? We learn to change the story. But like you and I chatted, there's 4 stages of learning. It takes practice. Like you have to repetitiously do this stuff. It's not a one-off, right? Okay. Then if I look at building a new mindset, let's say building a new habit because it's cliche. Yeah. Well, I have to positively, repetitiously count my wins every day around that new habit. Right. So my brain forms a new neural tag based off the old one that was negative. I got to build a new happy one, but your brain does that quickly. So we count wins at night. Okay. There's this movie that came out during COVID. I forget what it was called, but they did a really good job of counting wins. Like counting wins is going outside and it's sunny and you're like, oh, it feels nice out here. Counting your wins is, wow, I felt amazing after I got out in the sun for the first time in 3 months, right? Counting wins is, I had a great time with my friend And it really made me feel good to converse with someone face to face because I've been inside for 6 months, right? The wins, we got to find the wins in things that we've never seen before, right? It's taking the moment to love the taste of the pizza, right? It's to sit outside on a fall day and just take in the sound of the leaves falling on the ground. As it is for business to count my wins at all the great things I did today, even though I had a bad day, look what I got done, right? You're right. Like we think of, it's like two people having an argument in Starbucks, and one person that you're sitting with says, "Oh, I can't believe how mean that person's being to the other one." I'd sit there and be like, "Wow, look how great that person's handling that." Right. It's a complete mindset shift. But we need to start doing that, whether that's in business and relationships, etc. Right. Even in the negative aspect, like if, let's say you break up with someone in a relationship and you were in love with them, and you can say, wow, that was really hard. But you know what I learned about myself? I learned that my story of why I self-sabotage that relationship, that's actually on me. I actually did do those things. You know what? I'll be better at not letting that happen next time. Right? Because I'm starting to learn my stories, the things that my belief system has processed into this perception. But if I want to change my story and I want to become a better person or have better habits, have a positive mindset towards health, I want to be a successful business person, I need to become those traits, right? I need to become that free nature avatar of the actions, habits, and behaviors of that person. I need to reinforce them. I need to understand my bound nature traits of the things that I do that don't serve me.
Right.
And I need to understand where they came from and why they're there. And it's just a story. And if I can start changing the chapters and just go forward in the pages and write a new page, I can start becoming that person. You're not changing, right? It's the same person. I'm just choosing not to take in the influence and all the other stuff that was passed on to me. I'm choosing to become the person I know I am.
Right. You know, it's interesting. I first heard of the counting the wins in the evening when I talked with BG about a year ago on the last podcast, and he brought that up. And I told him, I was like, I'm going to start doing that. And he did a great thing. He's like, good, send them to me every night, through Facebook. It's like, be my accountability. Yeah. And sure enough, it was like, just naturally in my head, I'm like, okay, like I understand the small wins. I know incremental stuff. I've known that for a while. But the first time doing it, you're going through the day and I was like, okay, you're waiting for almost like an emotional feeling of it.
Yes.
When I'm like, a lot of those stuff, it didn't happen. It's like, okay, like there are little things going on. Like one of the things I wrote down was I'm actually writing out my wins right now as I'm doing this. Like that's and what I realized from that is after doing that for just a few days, you start to see those things throughout the day, and you start to take inventory of that. Of like, oh wow, like it is really nice out. That is a win, and you start saying that in your head. So, anybody listening and like you're saying, yes, this is a lot of incremental stuff that you do. It's not the big moment that you're waiting for of change, but it actually can change over the thoughts that you have.
Yeah. So
that was so powerful.
Yeah. When I started, I was looking for that big aha moment that changed my life that day. Right. That's what everyone thinks. But it's the small moments that lead to the aha moment.
Right.
Right. So this is where, for us in business, the simple and consistent nature of us building out 3 to 5 things you do a day, and you repeat those things every day, counting your wins at night and knowing that you check those off in your brain, in the brain loop, your brain actually sends dopamine and serotonin at small levels. But we think of getting off the roller coaster and getting that huge jolt of adrenaline as the excitement, when actually success in your weight loss, success in nutrition, your bank account, your relationships is so incremental, you don't see it. Like I tell personal trainers, when you work out every day, do you think you got leaner and you built 3 pounds of muscle or your biceps grew? No, it doesn't, right? But your clients are telling you they didn't lose a pound that week and they're depressed and upset and they're quitting. So you have to be able to relate that it's so simple and consistent over time. And when we look at business building, it's just no different. Like you could have no sales for 2 months and want to throw in the towel and self-sabotage because you're not doing the work. Then the next month you get like 20.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
You just don't know.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So building up those little, it's funny. I'm doing this course right now for writing called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And one of the things is morning pages where every morning you write 3 pages longhand, just stream of consciousness. And you don't reread it. You don't worry about grammar. It's just getting it out. And then in like the 3rd or 4th week after doing this, she puts it out. It's like usually around that page and a half mark is when all the clutter and the bullshit gets out of our head. And then things start to clear up from there. And sure enough, like just doing some writing and it's just like getting just random thoughts out. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this was the thing I was trying to look for. And then it starts to come out from there. So, and I saw that so much with wins too. It's like just writing out the little ones right off the bat. I woke up and I felt energized, you know, or I just saw this. Then the big ones that you forget about actually come into play a lot more that you forget about. And I had that the other day. I had a whole day where I was like, I felt like I got nothing done. It's like just one of those days where you just felt like you were behind. And then actually went back and it's like, oh shit, like I actually got a lot of really good conversations with clients done, like set up a couple things that I was looking for. Wow, a lot more stuff happened in this day than I thought.
Totally. It's when BG and I teach the win segment in business, or even when we're hashtag counseling or helping people with themselves, like, you know, your homework for the week, I just need you to get this one thing done, right? And then by the end of the quarter or at the beginning of the quarter, I say, I bet you in 5 weeks of 3 months, we get everything done in 5 weeks. And they're like, no way. And sure enough, every time everyone's done their quarter work with a whole month left, if not barely done. It's the same thing with fitness, right? You know, if you're having trouble getting to the gym, why not just drive to the gym? Just drive, but don't get out of your car and go home. You did the act of going, right? If you just do that 2 or 3 days a week, you're going to get in the habit of driving to the gym.
Yeah.
And you'll end up going to the gym. You know, if I told you in your nutrition, you know, why don't you just eat your vegetables first before anything else? Yeah. Then eat your protein, then eat your carbohydrate. Bet you don't need as much carbohydrate. Right? The little things just compound themselves over time. It's just the simplicity of the simple things that we replicate and reproduce daily is what really gets us traction over time. If we can just remind ourselves that it doesn't matter what I choose to work on as a goal, is that I have to make sure it's dynamic in time. There's no end time. It's not fixed, right? If it's a fixed goal, it's always going to be a negative because you're never going to be close enough when you check in, right? So we always make goals dynamic. Like when Brian and I do business, we have you do your best case, worst case scenario in finances, and your outrageous case. Worst case is actually not bad, right? But we have you get 3 targets, and we make sure that we don't have to, it's on this date. What are our goals for the year? We don't make dates. We don't do that. But then it's just driving us. And then we back everything up to 90 days. And then from 90 days, we built out 3 to 5 things everyone needs to do a day, with maybe something for homework for business each week to get us going. Then once we're going, it just moves on its own right away.
Right. Is that a struggle you see with a lot of people that come in, is like they think that goals need to be so fixed and down? Because I've seen that as a struggle from a client perspective, from a personal perspective. And I think a goal setting in general, it seems like something that we're not taught how to do. It's like we say we have a goal, maybe ask why a couple of times so you get the internal feel of it. But it almost seems like the word you use, which I love, I never thought of that with goals, is dynamic. It's like, does it seem like almost people have trouble even knowing what their goal is because they think it needs to be so fixed and on this date I'm going to get there?
I think to answer your question, because it's a really good one for everyone, is that we're influenced to make goals have a time end date to them. I mean, look at every magazine cover in Barnes & Noble. 8 weeks to a flatter stomach, 6 weeks, 4 weeks, 12 weeks. Like we want to go to a wedding in a month, and I got to lose 20 pounds in a month. I mean, like, doesn't matter when you have a fixed ending. When you start working, there's no amount of weight or things that you're trying to achieve that's going to be enough to think you're going to make it towards that end. And by the way, let's just say 8 weeks and you want to lose 30 pounds. In that first or 2 weeks, you haven't lost any weight. You're done. right? It's doom and gloom. So Carrie teaches it. It's fixed. The cliche is it's a journey, but it is because you just don't know how things are going to work out. Life's going to get in the way. Like, we need to expect the roadblocks in the road and not act like, oh my gosh, how did this happen? We need to expect that there's going to be roadblocks, and no matter what we're traversing. Right.
Okay.
So what everyone thinks they're going to go for this goal, it's all roses, right? It's all sugar and spice. It never is. Never. So if I go into it knowing, okay, there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, there's going to be stops, there's going to be successes. That's a dynamic mindset, right? That's a dynamic goal setting ability. So when you hit something, you're like, okay, couldn't work out today. It's okay. I'll get back tomorrow. Or, you know what? All my girlfriends want to go out tonight. I'm going to go have some wine. I'm going to have some fun. But tomorrow I'm right back on it. It's okay. It's one day. Right? Like business people. I didn't post today. Oh my God. I'm not going to get any sales this month.
Right.
So, let's post tomorrow. It's okay. Right? Like the perfectionistic aspect of goal setting to achieve is brutal for people. The only people it really matters for, I would say, are people who get on stage and make a living at a certain date, at a certain time, like an actor. Like, they need to be this movie ready for this scene this week. There are special people in the world that make a living on that, but we're not those people.
Right.
Right.
But even them, if you only focus on that time and don't realize that things could go wrong in that time, then if anything little goes, anybody who's been in drama before knows that no play ever goes completely unhinged with something. And it's like, if you don't recognize that those things could happen, then any little thing that goes off a little bit is just going to completely throw you in an opposite direction. Then you would never get through a play.
Yeah. I mean, people love the Retribution story, right? Justin Devonshire, who works with us, he makes this great point. He goes, how boring a biography of yours would it be if everything was perfect? No one would read it. It's so true. Yeah. Like, you want the stuff in the middle.
Yeah, you want the hero's journey.
Stuff, right. So, but we all think everything should be completely perfect. And it's just not. And when we start to understand ourselves, where our imperfections are, we're perfectly imperfect people, right? And we're not perfect. We're perfectly imperfect. And if I can understand that, and I know how to get myself out of that, that's a goal achievement. That'll get you to where you want to go. But we don't think our mindset is not fixed that way.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Chris, on this, because I'm going to try and put this together because there's a couple thoughts in my head on it. But what you talked about with the question that you ask a lot of people who are just working with you, what's your self-sabotage that's going on? But at the same end as well, if you ask somebody like, what are your faults, or they know their faults, a lot of times we see the negatives or our faults so quick, but it seems like that question of how are you self-sabotaging yourself is something that could be really difficult to answer as well. So when you were asking that question, do you come up with a lot of like butting heads at all with that question, or is that a hard thing for people to really get out?
For sure. It becomes like how the coaching industry coaches too, right? So coaches are taught to tell you, right? So it's like your significant other or spouse telling you to do something. What happens? Oh, I'm not doing that, right? I can't tell my significant other to do it. It's because we didn't ask the brain permission, right? So how we coach, how we talk to people about that, we ask permission to give that feedback. So I would say, Mike, can I give you a little bit of feedback? What I see a lot. So here's the trends that I'm seeing.
Okay.
Right?
Getting invited in.
Right. Because here's the reality. People don't even see their own self-sabotaging mechanisms.
Yeah.
Okay. So Mike, let me ask you, when you're on Facebook, how many Facebook profiles do you scroll before you stop? Or how many stories do you click on before you stop and realize how much time you've wasted?
Yeah.
That's a self-sabotaging mechanism. Yeah. All right. That stuff has been built by psychologists to self-sabotage you and keep you on there. Yeah. Right. Like we don't even realize the ones we have. Brian and I talk about we call the negative cycle, because we all have them, right? So like mine in life, especially if I look at relationships as a single dad and my stories that I've carried with me, like we could do a whole segment on dating, seriously. Like it's a 3-month cycle, right? Because of my family history, my marriage, etc. Like I know now, because I'm very self-aware, what and when things happen, what I do, and when I do them. But sometimes they're so deep. Like for some people in business, like we have these negative, what we call bound nature egos. And we talk about, people say they have an ego, but you don't really know them. Non-serving egos are like the 7 dwarfs. Okay. So like I have guilty Gil. I have overthinking Ollie. I have this is jerk the jock. Okay. Going the jerk the jock phase.
Yeah.
And what happens is, as people start learning their ego traits, when they start self-sabotaging themselves in business and relationships, you're going to notice this descent of these ego traits before you get to the last one. The last one for most people is self-worth, right? But self-worth for everyone is different. I could have a low self-worth because my relationship is really bad, but I'm great in business. Right? I don't know how to manage my relationships. I could be great in relationships, but terrible in business. But when I do well in business, my negative ego get me to that low self-worth in business or finances or my weight or how I look. Like we teach those, but one of the things that's really interesting, one of our core values for partners, for the Brian and Carrie Corporation, number 1 is Sawubona. It's see yourself, right? It's having the self-awareness to take accountability for it, and to be able to make the adaptation when you start noticing certain things in yourself, because we're imperfect, right? So if I can see myself better than you, I see your stuff before you even do. And that's why our coaching becomes so effective, because we notice your traits, your bound natures, your bound nature face when you speak to us. When you get on a call, like I get on a call and I'm in bound nature, Brian's like, got bound nature face, what's going on, right? Like because we know ourselves so well and our negative stuff, and we can talk about it, and it's easy for us to share. I can ask you because it's an invasive question for us, because we're so open about our stuff. Like Mike, if people came in from the outside about how Brian and I talk and our coaching stuff, the stuff we share would make people cringe because they can't say those things to themselves, about themselves. Mm-hmm. We talk about it like we're having a drink of water. Yeah. Right. So it provides a very open space, a safe space for people to be like, holy mackerel, they're sharing the deepest, hardest things of their life. And it allows them to start now looking at themselves and now pulling that out of themselves and now sharing that with us, which now brings it consciously where they can start working on it themselves.
Right. That's so powerful as a coach, because if you aren't open if you aren't completely open, and then you're in some way putting on an act, or you're protecting a self-image that you have if you're not completely open and genuine from there. So if you're doing that, that's going to take energy away from really seeing somebody else that you're trying to work with and everything 100%. That they're throwing at you. Yeah. So it's really all the energy transfer that you're talking about. So that was what hit me when you were talking is, wow, like these guys are so open from what I've seen. It allows you actually to listen and to help people in a way better way because of you're open with yourself. Yeah.
Being a better coach is showing people that you're not perfect. Yeah. Like you have issues just like everyone else. Like if you were out in New York and there was one of those pop-up bubbles on everyone's head, everyone has stuff they're going through. Mm-hmm. Everyone. Okay. Even the people who profess that they are perfect. They know their self-awareness. They know all their bound nature traits, everything. They're going through stuff. Everyone is. That's life.
Man, that's powerful. So one of the things too you talked about this is a lot of the mindset based work that you talked about, but the stuff that you've done with Next Level Neuro, which is the neuro-biomechanical stuff, like the same stuff that we're talking about with the brain for our thoughts is actually one of the biggest things for our physical body in training. And that's some stuff that you've been working with in the personal training world. Can you chat a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, you and I chatted about, how the personal training world, the health world, the physical therapists, the chiropractors, we've been taught or treated below the neck. Yeah. Like all the education, everything. It's a biomechanical aspect of the process. So there's a story, a very famous strength coach in the US, Michael Boyle, tells of if you treat your body, if you had one car your whole life, you treat that car immaculately, right? You change the spark plugs regularly, you change the oil regularly, you'd wax it all the time, you'd wash it, you'd take care of the interior. And that's the way we should take care of our body. But if my car is driving all over the road and I'm denting the side, the wheels are getting flat, or you're, to translate that to your body, your hips tight, you have pain in your left knee all the freaking time, your back seems to hurt all the time, and no matter what you do, it's always there. Well, if that's a relationship to your car, who's driving the car? The car doesn't drive itself. Well, not yet, anyway. Mm-hmm. The car's not driving itself. What moves our leg? What moves our posture? What moves our process of walking? It's our brain, right? Our brain job is survival. Like that's its main job, is to survive. So we think of it as a bucket, and your brain has to take in all the stress of the environment, from your eyes to your ears to how you see to how you feel. And when that bucket gets filled up, there's an overflow valve. What is the overflow valve? It could be a myriad of things: anxiety, depression, pain in my knee, back pain. It could autoimmune disease. Like there's so many things us as people genetically get from stress in our body. But the whole brain, when it's in threat, and the overflow valve, it's saying, slow down, something's wrong. Okay. I'll give you an example, fitness wise. You're working with a client and they can't squat. You're like, oh, I've been training this person for a year. I've shown them how to squat. I've told them their calves are tight. We're stretching their calves and they still can't squat. Why? Because their brain is scared. It's in threat, that the up and down motion, it perceives as a bad thing. It's saying, stop.
Yes.
So my calves are always going to be tight. I might hinge at the hip too much. Like it's a threat response from a neural side of your brain saying, I can't do this. So what do you have to do? You have to downregulate threat response with drills, exercises that help you do the physical things you've always wanted to do. For instance, like posture is a big thing. Okay. Does the New York Ballet teach posture exercises? No. Okay. Yoga people, they have all good posture, most of them, those yogis, right? Okay. Fitness industry generally poo-poo yoga. Okay. But I'll say is why do they have great posture? Because their brain feels safe moving around in different directions with different eye positions and stuff. It's a reflexive aspect to your brain. I don't remember the part of your brain. I would have to ask the really smart people that, but posture is reflexive. Okay.
Right.
Fitness industry teaches it consciously. Okay. And it's great. So if you're really type A and you repeat that stuff, you will end up having good posture. A lot of fitness people do. A lot of fitness people don't. But if I've learned understanding the neurology between my eyesight, my ears, etc., my proprioceptive position, my feet, and I know how to test what's offline, how to get it back online, how to reassess it, I'll be able to take someone who has chronic knee pain, hip pain, back pain, and dissipate it way faster than trying to stretch that right hip in a Thomas test stretch, etc. over and over again. Like the brain work allows all the biomechanical stuff we've learned to actually work better. It's not wrong. The brain just allows it to work better and to stick and to then to move on and go through, right? Like I have hemochromatosis. Okay. So I have a genetic blood disposition to hold iron more so than anyone else.
Okay.
So my body, metabolism wise, was really slow because it's in constant threat. The moment I had that fixed or had taken care of, things drastically changed in my life. Testosterone went up. I didn't have brain fog anymore. I had more energy. Like, it wasn't because I exercised more or exercised less. It's because my brain decided it was not stressful anymore. Like, we could say sleep better. Okay. We know lack of sleep is a stress.
Right.
But what does that do? Right? Sitting at a computer all day. Yes, it's bad posture. But what are my eyes doing all day? Your eyes have muscles. Your eyes take in more information than any other sense in your body. It drives how you stand. Right? Yes, your head's forward. Like, we could say forward head position. But what's driving your head forward?
Right.
Right. So it's a very different, we like to call it the neuro-biomechanical aspect of our body. It is the driver to everything we do. Yeah.
So interesting. One of the guys that I worked for a long time, Dr. Hank Lynette, he passed away in his late 90s, and up until the last 6 months of his life, he was still coming in every day and working out and still seeing patients. And he was a hypnotherapist. And the whole thing he would talk about all day with every single person was about stress in their body. Yeah. And it was the only thing he talked about for the last 10 years of his life of it. And because we had a million different things with exercises, there's a million different techniques to do. And we were an incredible gym working there. But all he talked about with people was, where's the stress in your life? Yeah. And you could see when he would work with people and you would see it come down, just the natural differences in posture would change, from people.
100%.
It would just seem lighter. It's so fascinating. Yeah. It is. It's the fitness industry. We talk so much about everything from the neck down, unless you're doing a neck stretch pretty much, but right. But everything that's controlling, and the brain is so weird because it's still something that we still don't know that much about that's going on. There's so much stuff that's going on up there. So the work with Next Level Neuro and stuff like this is stuff that if you're going to be a coach and you're going to be in the fitness world, or even just generally want to be healthier, this is the stuff that, learning, the mechanics of a squat is important, but learning this side too, as well, of why that's happening, I think that's so huge. Yeah.
It's a very different, it's the next level of education that'll come into the world. I mean, it's been out there, but it hasn't been directed into the front line of people that actually see people and make a change. Like, if you look at the fitness industry, who drove diets more than anyone? Different diets, new diets, trendy diets, from paleo to keto. It's the industry that deals with people more on a more ongoing basis than anyone else.
No, this is amazing. Chris, dude, this time just flew by with you, man. We're gonna have to do a part 2, and we're gonna have to keep rolling on this. So
I would love to.
I really appreciate the time. It's a blast. And again, the work that you're doing, just keep it up. Just keep doing it.
Appreciate you, man.
I appreciate it. If anybody's interested in checking you out, following you, or looking into partners, what's the best place that we can direct them?
Yeah. So the way we teach business is the way I'm going to tell you now. Just go onto Facebook and just contact me at Chris Mattice. So it's cmattice07 on Facebook, or you can go on our free page, which is Eliminate Your Limits, Coaches Only, and then we'll get everyone to partners. We don't do we don't do websites or anything like that. Everything's built organically through social media. So
I love it, dude. Brother, you're the best.
All right, man. I appreciate your time. I'll talk to you later, brother. All right,
listeners,
bye.
Thanks so much, man.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining me today. If you like the show, please give it a 5-star review, give it a thumbs up, all that good stuff. And if you want to get the inside scoop on all new episodes coming up, behind the scenes insights, and free training resources, then you can join the Strenght Connection private Facebook group now. Just go to Facebook groups, type in the Strenght Connection, and join in. Also, don't forget to subscribe. See you soon.